Dear listener, welcome. I am Master, your humble guide through the tales the cards whisper to me. Tonight, let me take you into the essence of the world, a card that speaks of completion, fulfillment, and unity. And yet, also of the profound weight of carrying one's entire existence to its apex. Picture him, Roland. He's 57, standing on the deck of an old fishing boat in a small harbor town he once called home. The waves lap against the hull, a rhythmic, almost meditative sound. Above him, the stars stretch endlessly, a reminder of the vastness of the world beyond this tiny place. Roland isn't here for nostalgia. He's here for redemption. In his hand, he clutches an envelope, its edges worn and yellowed with time. It contains a letter he'd written 20 years ago, addressed to a man who no longer exists, himself. Back then, he was a dreamer, a young fisherman with grand ambitions of building something greater than himself. He'd left this town with nothing but a battered suitcase and a head full of plans. He'd built a business empire, all right? One that swallowed him whole. The salt air stings his eyes, or maybe it's the memories. His hands, once calloused from pulling in nets, are now soft and pale, unrecognizable even to him. The years have blurred into a relentless march of meetings, deals, and mergers. He'd succeeded beyond his wildest dreams, but the cost was steep. Family left behind, friends forgotten, the town's shorelines, its laughter, its simplicity, all traded for a life he thought he wanted. Now he's here to face the truth. Roland steps off the boat, his worn boots crunching against the gravel dock. The town's lights are dim, its streets quiet. He's invisible here. Just another old face weathered by time. He makes his way to the small inn where he's rented a room. But his destination isn't sleep. He sits at a wooden desk, opens the envelope and reads the letter. The words are naive, painfully so. They're filled with promises. To never lose himself, to stay true to the values this town instilled in him, to remember what matters most. He chuckles bitterly. If only the younger Roland could see him now. And yet, there's something else in those words. Hope. A belief that he could shape his destiny, that he could be more than a product of his circumstances. He folds the letter and slips it back into the envelope. It's not too late, he thinks. Not too late to make things right. The next morning, Roland walks to the market square where fishermen unload their catches and children dart between stalls. It's a scene he'd forgotten, one that fills him with both longing and regret. He stops by a stall, manned by a boy no older than 16. The boy's hands are swift and sure as he arranges fresh fish on ice.
You're Roland Thompson, aren't you?
The boy asks, his eyes wide with recognition. Roland nods, surprised.
How do you know me?
My grandfather used to tell stories about you. Said you were the best fisherman this town ever had before you left.
The words hit Roland like a wave. Best fisherman. Before he left, he sees his younger self reflected in the boy's eager gaze. What would that boy think of the man he's become? He buys a fish from the boy, though he has no intention of cooking it. It's a gesture, a way of reconnecting with a part of himself he thought he'd lost. As he walks back toward the inn, he makes a decision. He'll stay here for a while, help where he can, and perhaps in the process, rediscover the man he was meant to be. Days turn into weeks. Roland spends his mornings at the docks, lending a hand where it's needed. He teaches the younger fishermen tricks he'd learned in his youth. How to read the tides, how to mend nets with speed and precision. The work is hard, his muscles ache in ways he'd forgotten, but there's a satisfaction in it that no boardroom ever gave him. Slowly, the townsfolk begin to greet him with smiles instead of wary glances. He's no longer the ghost of a man who left. He's becoming part of the rhythm of this place again. One evening, Roland is invited to a small gathering by the shore. A bonfire crackles, its flames dancing against the dark sky. The smell of grilled fish and the sound of laughter fill the air. Roland sits among them, feeling a warmth that has nothing to do with the fire. For the first time in decades, he feels connected. To these people, to himself, to the world. As the night wears on, he shares his story. He speaks of the empire he built, the emptiness it brought, and the letter that brought him back. There's no judgment in their eyes, only understanding. One of the elders, a woman with a face etched by years of sun and wind, places a hand on his shoulder.
You found your way home, Roland. That's what matters.
The world, dear listener, isn't just about endings. It's about the infinite that lies beyond them. Roland didn't need to erase his past to find his future. He just needed to remember the values that had guided him in the first place. So I ask you, as the world asks us all, what have you left behind that's worth rediscovering? And will you dare to return, not to dwell, but to transform? Think on it, my friend. Until next time.